Okay, so one of my fears was definitely coming off as a biatch. I mean, I definitely did not want that. And if you can relate to that yourself, then this video is going to be for you. Hey there, welcome to Mac TV. My name is Mac, and this is a channel for first-time team managers who are looking to up-level their skills as well as their confidence so that they can lead their teams effectively. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to assert yourself at work as a manager, especially as a brand new manager. So, in working with clients, I've noticed a few trends, right? That usually people reach out to me when they are struggling with, let's say, a fear of failure. Imposter syndrome is a big one. Self-doubt is a big one. Dealing with problematic employees, so like having tough conversations or delegating time management and prioritization, as well as asserting themselves, particularly as a brand new manager. Now, I've pretty much covered like most of these topics on the channel. And of course, in my new manager accelerator program, I specifically teach my students how to overcome these challenges and how to do a lot of the things that I just mentioned. But the one topic that I haven't mentioned on the channel is the assertiveness piece. So essentially how to assert yourself at work as a manager. I haven't really discussed that on the channel. So that's what this video is going to be about today. And so if this is something that you are currently struggling with, then you are going to enjoy this video. All right. So one of the biggest misconceptions out there about asserting yourself is the belief that if you assert yourself, that you will be perceived as being mean or nasty. And I mean, nobody really wants that, right? Nobody wants to be labeled as the nasty or mean person, right? I mean, I know I certainly didn't want to be labeled as that. I didn't want to wear that on my sleeve. And so I was very careful in what I said or if I spoke up. Another thing too is, for me, I also didn't feel like in meetings I necessarily had anything valuable to add or anything important to say. And so I didn't necessarily speak up when I should have. Also, I just had a fear of conflict, as well as I think deep down, I had kind of a negative relationship with rejection. And so this caused a lot of issues when it came to me asserting myself. And I've noticed with clients that they follow the similar patterns that I had at this time as well, which is why I want to call it out. So one of the first things I actually want you to do as you walk down this path of trying to assert yourself more is simply calling out the why you are not asserting yourself. So what are your fears that you have when it comes to asserting yourself? So for example, when I was talking about some of the reasons why I didn't, did you find yourself saying, yeah, that's me. I definitely don't assert myself because of that? Or if it wasn't those reasons that I mentioned, what were they for you, right? Think about specific situations or instances where you should have asserted yourself and you didn't, and maybe what you were thinking about and why you didn't take that next step, right? It's really important for us to call out our fears so that we can name it, address it, and then change or take back control of the narrative in our head. So after you've named the narrative, I want you to know this one thing, that the story that you're telling yourself about what asserting yourself actually means is not true. You see, assertiveness and aggressiveness are not the same thing. And so many people conflate the two. In fact, it's interesting that when I talk to clients about what assertiveness is, they usually actually describe back to me aggressiveness, which means they are confusing what the two actually mean. So the best description that I've heard to kind of like describe the two and separate the two is actually by Esther Perel, where she says that assertiveness is a dialogue and aggressiveness is a debate. You see, assertiveness is really all about just communicating and articulating what you need in a calm, respectful, and clear manner. And there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with letting a group of people or another person know how you feel about something in a calm, respectful, and clear manner, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So being assertive is not an issue. So based on that, it's very important for you to remind yourself when these fears come up or those negative thoughts start to fire in your mind, it's important for you to shift that narrative and double down on what the truth is, which is that asserting yourself is simply about communicating and articulating what you need in a clear and respectful manner. It's a dialogue that needs to be had, and there is nothing wrong with that. Now, once you have a clear understanding of what your deep-rooted fear is about asserting yourself, and you are able to flip the script on that narrative, The first step you have to take is to actually truly understand yourself. I'm talking about spending some time to really analyze what your value systems are, what your belief systems are, what your value is to the organization and to the team, to the department. Because when you truly understand that, what your value is, then you start to understand the value of your voice. And then what happens is you recognize what it means when you don't use the value of your voice and when you don't speak up. So I actually want to encourage you to spend some time thinking about this. Grab a journal and jot this down. Think about what your belief systems are and what your values are that feeds into the boundaries that you set for yourself. What value do you bring to the organization? What value do you bring to your team? Like, why you? Why were you chosen for this role? Now, if you're having some trouble with this, what I recommend you do is actually go to my video on personal branding that I'll link for you somewhere around here. And then what you can do is download the personal branding workbook that I have, because it has some like prompts and questions that might help you work through this. But I do think it's very important for you to have a good understanding of who you are in order for you to truly value your voice. Here's the thing, your insights are very important and your expertise is needed. And if you hold back, then you're actually doing a disservice to not just yourself, but also to your team, since you are the mouthpiece as the leader of that team. I'll give you an example of what I mean. So back in the day, when I lacked my assertiveness, I used to sit in meetings all the time and think to myself, like, okay, that makes no sense. Like when it came to my team, right? There was things that people were saying that we should do that just did not make sense for the way that we were operating as a team. And so oftentimes, like in my head, I would be like, that makes no sense. But then out loud, what I would actually say was, okay, sure. And then one time, the most like ridiculous decision was made. Okay. Like the most ridiculous decision was made. And I did the exact same thing where in my head, I was like, this is never going to work. But then out loud, what I said was, okay, sure, we can do that. Just like that. And so I took back the decision to my team. And I'll never forget, one of my team members, one of the high performers, looked at me and she's like, what the heck? Do they even know what we do around here? And it was at that point that it kind of clicked for me. I realized, they don't know because I didn't use my voice, right? That's actually not on them. That's on me. The reason why my team is now suffering is because I didn't have the gallbladder, for lack of a better word, to assert myself and say what was necessary on behalf of the team, which was my job. And so the same goes for you, right? If you don't assert yourself when necessary, it's not just a disservice to you, but it's also a disservice to the people on your team who are counting on you to do the right thing and to speak up on their behalf because they can't be in the room. Another piece of that pie when it comes to asserting yourself is making sure that you are clear and that you're watching your tone, right? So when you are engaged in a dialogue where perhaps you are sharing your thoughts or opinions, or maybe pushing back on an idea that you don't necessarily agree with, it's extremely important that you are clear, right? Make sure that you're not mincing words and that you are clearly understood. So this is not the time to be showing off your knowledge of the words in the dictionary, right? You want to use simple language because the goal here is to be clearly understood. The next thing as well is that you want to make sure that your tone reflects what you're saying in a respectful manner, right? So you want to make sure that you are firm, but not aggressive, but respectful and not timid. Now, I know that's kind of like a weird balance to have to tread, but you want to make sure that that's kind of where your tone is, right? So that the other person doesn't take what you're saying personally. You want to make sure that you're striking that balance. Now, yes, it does take time and practice, but the more you do it, the better you will get at this. The next important aspect of all of this is watching your body language. Remember, the value of what you're saying is extremely important, and so your body language should reflect that. So much of our communication is nonverbal. So for example, if you are saying what you have to say and asserting yourself in a very clear and respectful manner, but your body language is maybe hunched over and you're not necessarily looking the person in the eye, then you're actually devaluing what you're saying, right? And actually, depending on the person that you're talking to, like if they have a very strong personality, they might actually overpower what you're saying and then everything is lost. So you want to make sure that you're standing up straight, and that what your body basically is reflecting the value of what you're saying, which is why I started this off by talking about you understanding the value of what you have to bring to the table, because it does affect everything, not just the words, but also the gestures and your body language as well. Finally, don't wait to say what you have to say. Say what you have to say in the moment. Saying what you have to say in the moment actually has a greater impact, and it's also just great practice for you. So take a deep breath, stand up tall, and just speak your thoughts. Remember, you were chosen for this role for a reason, and you have value to add. You are worthy of having your thoughts be heard, so speak them. Just make sure you're doing that in a calm and respectful manner. And besides, your team, like we mentioned, is relying on you to do that. So use that beautiful voice of yours and say what you have to say. All right, so that's pretty much it in terms of my tips for how to assert yourself at work as a brand new manager. I hope that you found the tips helpful. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe so you don't miss out on any other content that I share on this platform every single Tuesday. All right, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Don't forget to keep smiling, and I'll see you in the next one.